Manham, you must restore your own feelings of Christmas this year, or else your soul will be doomed.
I've got it. TV Christmas specials. Fuck, I'm Santa now. Hey, wait a minute. Are you Tim Allen? So what, I'm just Santa now? Okay, well, I'm either gonna try to figure out how to undo this or start making my list, I guess. I'm gonna give it what it wants. If Christmas specials got me into this mess, maybe they can get me out of it too. I need to be so holly and jolly that I'm overloaded with Christmas spirit, and maybe that will help get rid of the curse. With only weeks left until Christmas, I'm barely prepared for my own, let alone everybody else's. I don't even think my toy making skills have kicked in yet. I was making a race car, so I've got to get this done right now. So you know what? Let's take a look at some of the festive, nostalgic episodes from my childhood from one of my favorite channels, Cartoon Network. And maybe that'll be enough to push me over the Christmassy edge. I've got another 20 episodes lined up from over the years. Once again, I'm only doing one per show, so if there's a show that has multiple holiday episodes, I'll just be picking my favorite one. And I'm going to be ranking these like last time, not based on how good the actual episode is, but by how much Christmas spirit it instills in me. Also, don't be expecting Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer or Olive the Other Reindeer, because those aren't Christmas episodes, those are holiday movies made for TV. So let's kick things off. Codenamed Kids Next Door, Operation Naughty. A full-blown parody of Marvel Comics isn't exactly what you'd expect from a K&D Christmas special, but they actually managed to pull it off so well. We start the episode with Santa's workshop being infiltrated by the K&D, where they neutralize all the elves, including Wintergreen, who's keeping guard, and Santa. We then cut to the team heading home from somewhere, but when they get back to the treehouse, it's gone, and Wintergreen, a parody of Wolverine, is there waiting along with his team Alpha Strike. And I gotta say, as a comic book fan, what a wild pull. Even though it's more of a parody of X-Men, even the fact that it's referencing the rarely brought up team of Alpha Strike is pretty crazy. Anyways, they battle the kids thinking that they stole Santa's reindeer reins, but after the battle it's revealed it was actually the Delightful Children in disguise. The kids team up with the elves and head back to the North Pole, where the Delightful Children have gained control of Santa's reindeer, which instead of being an actual deer and sleigh is instead a take on Professor X's Cerebro. It's linked to every Christmas tree and can automatically send gifts or coal to kids all around the world. The kids and the elves show up to stop them, but are confronted by Miss Education, the mascot for Substitute Teachers Day, and her team, which is a take on the Fantastic Four. The elves battle the new foes while the kids stop the children. However, number 3 then takes control of the reindeer due to the fact that she got gifts for everyone else and no one's gotten her anything. So now she goes mad with the power to give herself every gift in the world. Thanks to Santa, though, number 4 is able to get through to her when he gives her a gift that he's been saving: leftover French fries, saving number 3 and Christmas itself just in time for the K&D to head back home. Maybe it's just the fact that the whole thing is sort of parodying like Marvel and comic books in general, but I love this one. And while all the comic book references were pretty great, outside of that it's pretty funny and entertaining. Honestly, this episode just kind of flew by when I watched it because I was just enjoying it so much. I do think it probably could have benefited from having a bit more like heart to it. Like, it doesn't really have any like sappy or sweet moments that you'd come to expect from a Christmas special. Like, even when number 4 gives number 3 her gift, it's still pretty much played off as a joke considering their French fries. But I still really like this one, even if it wasn't super sentimental. If it just had that touch of tenderness, it might have gone all the way up to S tier for me, but I think we're going to stick with A tier. My beard's gone. Well, not my beard, but, you know, the beard. This might actually be working. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Billy and Mandy Save Christmas. Grim, Mandy, and Billy are waiting in line at the mall to see Santa. Well, Billy assumes it's the line for the bathroom, but he gets excited when he finds out what they're really doing. He makes his way to Santa, who turns out to be their neighbor Scar, and tells him what he wants for Christmas while, relieving himself on Santa's lap. Scar freaks out and attacks Billy, which causes a riot to break out and the mall to burn down. Meanwhile, Grim's told Mandy that he actually knows the real Santa and went to college with him. But Mandy, of course, doesn't believe him. In order to prove it, Grim takes them to Santa's village in the North Pole. When they get there, though, they find that Mrs. Claus and the elves are in hiding because Santa has somehow been turned into a vampire, threatening the existence of Christmas itself. Mandy deduces that they need to find the head vampire to revert Santa back to his normal self, so Mrs. Claus tells them to check out the local vampire, Baron von Ghoulish. They find the Baron, and although Mandy thinks she destroys him, he comes back and reveals that they need to find the head vampire instead. They get back to the workshop where it's revealed that Mrs. Claus herself is the top vampire who turned her husband into a monster due to being upset with him always focusing on Christmas instead of helping out around the house. Grim and Mandy try to escape to the toy room where they get attacked by vampire elves and fight them off using the toys. Meanwhile, Billy stumbles into Santa's office and discovers a hologram of him that gives him directions on what to do just in this very instance. Mandy goes to battle Mrs. Claus while Billy delivers the newly made antidote, which is in a plate of milk and cookies. Santa eats them and reverts back to normal and apologizes to Mrs. Claus for not doing his share of the housework. They forgive each other and Christmas is saved. Mandy then questions Santa on the fact that his wife is a vampire, but he tells her that sometimes you have to have faith in the good of others and take risks for the people that you love. And he also tells her this is like the 6th or 7th time that it's happened. The episode ends with Grim getting a new scythe, Mandy getting coal in her stocking, and Billy helping guide Santa's sleigh. I love this one. It's hilarious and Christmassy all throughout. It's definitely not like super sweet and heartfelt, but it's Billy and Mandy, so I wasn't really expecting that. But on the other hand, this is probably one of the funniest episodes on this whole list. And even though it's mostly just fun and stupid, there is just that like touch of sentiment at the very end, which really does sort of help wrap this thing up in a nice little Christmassy bow. I think this one's gonna go on A tier. Adventure Time, Holly Jolly Secrets. In this 2-parter episode, we find Finn and Jake as they dig up some treasure that Jake buried, which turns out to be videotapes that the Ice King had thrown away. Thinking that they might hold some evil secrets, the guys watch through them thanks to BMO. However, they turn out to pretty much be the Ice King's video diary. Ice King finds out and at first just wants to watch the movies with them until he realizes what they are and tries to get into the treehouse to get them back. He builds a snowman army, gets into the house, and is about to get the upper hand when BMO plays the last tape, which shows the Ice King in his human form, Simon Petrikov, who's been studying a supernatural crown. We see his degradation into madness in the video, his hair getting longer and white, his skin turning blue, and the endless winter surrounding the outside world. Back at the treehouse though, he starts crying and tells them that now they know his awful secret. He used to wear glasses. Finn decides maybe it's best to let him have the tapes back and returns them. Ice King thinks that it's a gift and in return gives Finn a tiny tree and Jake a skunk. Then they decide to make it a tradition to once a year put on comfy sweaters, get together, and watch videos next to the fire, making their own sort of Christmas holiday traditions. For a minute there while watching this one, I didn't think it was going to get Christmassy at all. It's probably not even until like 3/4 into this thing that they bust out the Christmas sweaters. And up until that point, there was pretty much nothing festive or holly jolly going on. But I'll admit, those final minutes really do wrap everything up nicely. Get it? Wrap? Like a present? Because Christmas? But with them all exchanging the gifts and then deciding to make a tradition out of it was pretty nice. So for the most part, not that much of a Christmas special, but those final few minutes did definitely sort of bump up my Christmas spirit a little bit. So I think that last little bit is going to bring this one up to a B tier. Powerpuff Girls. 'Twas the fight before Christmas. In this double-length episode, we find the girls in class getting ready for Christmas with all of their classmates. But unfortunately, that includes Princess Morbucks, who says that since her dad buys her anything that she wants, all that she wants for Christmas is to be a Powerpuff Girl. They of course tell her there's no way that's going to happen since she's been spoiled, greedy, and absolutely naughty. So she decides to head to the North Pole to find Santa himself. Meanwhile, the girls are decorating the house while everyone else in town is preparing for Santa to come, from all the other kids to the adults to even Mojo Jojo himself. However, they're all about to be very disappointed as Morbuck sneaks her way into Santa's workshop. She discovers the nice list, which of course she isn't on, instead being the only kid on the naughty list. So she switches the lists and sneaks back out. The girls are sleeping, waiting for Christmas when Bubbles wakes up after hearing Santa's bells. She comes downstairs to find her and her sister's stockings filled with coal. She then flies around town and checks out all the other houses where every other stocking's filled with coal as well. She wakes up her sisters, tells them what happened. They're all confused and sad about the coal and decide to go find Santa and set things straight. Morbucks then shows up though with her new Powerpuff powers and attacks the girls, setting off to find Santa before them. They chase her all over the world and she does get the drop on the girls for a bit, but they all end up at the North Pole at the same time. And in their tussle, they destroy Santa's workshop and land right in front of him. He's upset that every single kid on the list is naughty this year except for one, and when Morbuck says that these are the Powerpuff Girls, Santa says they should be on the nice list, which of course pisses her off. This makes her show her true colors, which makes Santa realize she's actually the naughty one, and in retaliation puts her on the permanent naughty list. Santa goes to fix Christmas for everybody, but now that everything's destroyed, including his sleigh, he asks the Powerpuff Girls to help save Christmas. They deliver all the presents and then head back home to bed. This one's pretty cute and really entertaining. Morbucks being her usual bratty self, and then the girls saving the day at the end. And the whole chase scene with them chasing her all over the world was really entertaining. Throw in some decently funny moments too, and this is a pretty great episode. I don't think it's quite S tier material, but it did bump up my spirits quite a little bit. So I'm going to go A tier. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, a lost clause. Everyone at the house is busy getting festive and decorating for the holiday. They're all excited because it's the first Christmas with Mac and Blue. Blue, however, hears that everyone at the house only gets one present due to money being tight and freaks out until Mac reminds him of Santa. But right at that moment, the house gets infiltrated with dozens and dozens of Santas. Frankie leads them in and explains to Mac that every year tons of kids imagine their own version of Santa, so they all come to the house. This leads Mac to realize that all of these Santas are fake, and maybe that means there isn't a real one at all. Mac's upset that Santa was a lie, meanwhile Blue's just upset about not getting more gifts. Blue decides that they can't give up though and takes Mac to prove that Santa does actually exist. He sends Wilt on a sleigh around the world and Eduardo down the chimney to prove that he can do these things. Then they go to the mall to see Coco, who's dressed up as Santa. Mac accidentally removes her beard though and she storms off upset at them. They come back home to find the fire department unable to get Ed out of the chimney and Wilt still missing. With Blue's experiments failed, Mac's still feeling down, so Madam Foster tries to talk to him and cheer him up. On Christmas Eve, though, Blue is posted up by the chimney waiting for the real Santa and eating his cookies. He then remembers the story of A Christmas Carol. Well, sort of. And decides to try and scare Mr. Harriman into giving everyone more gifts by pretending to be the ghost of Bob Marley, the ghost of a Christmas present, and a robotic ghost of Christmas future. There's a bit of miscommunication between Blue and Harriman, though, and he thinks the ghosts are telling him not to give anyone any presents. So he throws out all the decorations and all the gifts. Blue calls Mac and tells him what's happening, so Mac prays to Santa and asks him for any sort of sign that he's real. Maybe even some new underwear. Christmas morning comes and Mac opens up all his gifts, but none of them are the underwear that he asked for. So he's disappointed and heads off to Foster's. When he gets there though, he sees that it's a Christmas miracle. Wilt and Ed are back home, everyone's celebrating, the house is decorated, and there's tons of gifts, including a stocking for Mac filled with underwear. And of course, Blue gets a ton of coal. Mac starts to believe again while Blue swears his revenge. I think this one's fantastic. Not only is it hilarious, but it's really heartfelt too. And honestly, the whole plotline with Mac not knowing whether or not Santa exists is kind of a genius move for a show that's based entirely on imaginary characters. And maybe it's just the juxtaposition with Mac being pretty down and out about the whole Santa not being real thing that at the very end, when it turns out he is and it's a Christmas miracle, it kind of warmed my heart a little bit. I definitely ended this episode with a smile on my face. It takes something that almost every kid goes through where they don't know whether or not they still believe in Santa, which you should because I am him, and it just gives it a nice, happy, heartfelt ending. I think this might be the best one so far, and I'm gonna go with an S tier. Dexter's Lab. Dexter versus Santa's Claus. In this episode, we find Dee Dee in Dexter's lab writing her list to Santa on his computer. Dexter berates her and tells her that Santa isn't real and it's just their dad dressing up while their mom dresses up as a reindeer. In order to prove his theory, he stays up on Christmas Eve until he's alerted that someone's on the roof. Santa himself then appears in their house, but Dexter appears behind him and tells him to take off his beard so he can get a picture of his dad. Santa sends him on his way, but still not believing that it isn't his dad, Dexter attacks Santa and tries to take off his beard. Santa then escapes to the roof, where Dexter follows. One of the reindeer try to stop him, but assuming that it's his mom, he takes off the deer's antlers. Santa then shoves Dexter into the chimney and flies off. But of course, Dexter's transformed the chimney into a rocket and takes off after him. He shoots down Santa back into the house and starts to shave him, when his dad appears behind him and asks just what he's doing. Dexter then realizes that not only did he just shave the real Santa, but also destroyed his house, the tree, the presents, and pretty much Christmas itself. In an effort to save his own skin, he asks, "Isn't Christmas really about giving and sharing and family?" To which Santa replies, "No, it's about presents." This is a funny little episode, and while it is pretty entertaining, it also felt just a bit mean-spirited to me. Like, don't get me wrong, the scenes with Dexter thinking that Santa and his reindeer are his parents are hilarious, and the fact that Santa only speaks in ho-ho-hos, genius.
Ho 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 ho!
But I know it's supposed to be a bit tongue-in-cheek, but this one just felt a bit too cynical for me. Like, I think this one genuinely brought down my Christmas spirit just a little bit. I enjoyed the episode for what it was, it's funny, but I don't think it's that good of a Christmas special. Like I said, if anything, this made me feel less Christmassy. So I think I'm going to go with a D tier. And now the gloves are back. Thanks, Dexter. Chowder. Hey, it's Kanishmas. In a world filled with food-related lore, you'd have to imagine their holidays are probably going to be a bit different than ours. Instead of Christmas, everyone in Marzipan City celebrates Kanishmas. which is very similar to our own holiday with the gift giving and the celebration with friends and family. However, instead of Santa, they have Knish Kringle, who shows up to see everyone's schmingerbread houses. And if he likes yours, you get gifts. If he doesn't, he destroys your home. Chowder and the gang are wandering around town when Chowder sees a gift that he wants insanely badly. Mung tells him that it might be a bit too expensive this year, but Chowder's determined that Knish Kringle will bring it since he's such a good little boy. Mung, however, has his doubts since his schmingerbread houses always turn out badly. He decides this year, though, he's going to make the best house ever, so Chowder gets the gift that he wants. Mung and Chowder try again and again and again to build a good schmingerbread house, but unfortunately, Mung just can't make a good one. In an effort to save the holiday for Chowder, Mung swallows his pride and decides to buy one from his nemesis. Chowder sees this happen and realizes that he needs to help Mung too, since he knows how prideful he is about his own baking. He goes to see Knish Kringle, even though it's just gazpacho, who freaks out about having to make everybody's wish come true and runs off, leaving behind his Knish costume. So, with the help of panini and gorgonzola, Chowder dresses up in the costume and sneaks into Mung's kitchen. He plans to pretend that Knish doesn't like the house he bought and instead eats his messed up schmingerbread house. However, while Chowder's explaining the plan, the real Knish Kringle shows up. They try to get to the house before him, which starts a racket in the kitchen and wakes up Mung. He comes down to see the two Knishes fighting. Chowder gets to the house first and eats it before Knish can, and explains to Mung that he did this just because he didn't want Mung to feel bad and went through all the trouble to try to make him feel better. They reconcile and Chowder gives Gorgonzola a coat made out of gazpacho's fur, and gives Panini a kiss on the cheek to thank them for helping. Knish then hears Chowder tell Mung that he's just glad everybody else got something they wanted, and he has no problem waiting for the next year. After hearing this selflessness, Knish pukes up a present for Chowder, and it's exactly what he wanted, and everyone wishes us a Merry Knishmas. I think this one's pretty great too. Of course, with it being Chowder, it's funny and weird, just like every other episode of Chowder, but it's also pretty sweet. The whole premise of the episode pretty much boils down to Mung and Chowder trying to make the other one feel good, which is really what Knishmas is all about. Sure, everybody in the episode has their own wants, but they all tend to set their wants aside to help out somebody else for the season. It's honestly just really sweet and wholesome. I'm gonna go with an A tier. My gym partner is a monkey. Monkey, monkey, monkey. Have yourself a joyful little animus. Adam, the main character, wakes up on the hottest day of the year, which makes his allergies go haywire, while everyone else at the school is celebrating Animus, the celebration of animal instincts, which of course Adam has none of. Each day the animals follow their instincts, from wearing a certain color one day to going south for the next. Adam starts feeling left out from not knowing what's going on like all of his friends and start doubting that he even belongs there. Jake tells him to just follow his instincts, but he says that he can't. Then, as is tradition, the students have to use their instincts to find their way to the Animus Rock. But since he can't, he's ruining the holiday for everybody else. So Adam decides to leave and go back to human school, but now he can't even fit in there. He goes to a sushi restaurant to cheer himself up, where he eats a ball of wasabi, which clears his nasal passages. He then hallucinates Coach Gills on his plates, who tells him that Animus is about more than instincts and it's about being with your friends. So he goes back to the animal school, only now with his new sense of smell, he's actually able to smell his way to the rock and continue all the celebrations. A very weird episode, but to be fair, it's a weird show. And even though the episode's only like Christmas coded since it's about a made up holiday, it still hits pretty much all the same marks. And you know, it's got a nice little message about being with your friends, even if you're feeling a bit left out. I think this one was alright, but my instincts are telling me that this didn't really do much for my Christmas spirit, so I'm probably gonna go with a C tier. Courage the Cowardly Dog, the Nutcracker. Here we get a vague parody of the already vaguely Christmas production, The Nutcracker. We find Muriel, Eustace, and Courage scrounging through a junkyard. Muriel finds an antique nutcracker, which she gifts to Courage, even though it scares the shit out of him. They then get locked in accidentally while two giant ballet-dancing, man-eating rats attempt to kidnap Muriel and Eustace. They get Eustace pretty much instantly, but Courage grabs Muriel and tries to keep her safe. He uses the nutcracker as pretty much like a Swiss Army knife to evade the rats for a while, before they eventually get her. Courage finds them trying to make people soup and uses the nutcracker and the power of dance to rescue his family, before Eustace then tries to use the nutcracker and breaks its teeth, now matching Courage's. I think this is a good episode, like it's creepy and it's funny, and while it is a take on the nutcracker, which is a classic, outside of using the music and having dancing rats, and you know, a nutcracker, it just didn't feel like there was anything really too Christmassy about this one. Honestly, this might be the least Christmassy episode on the whole list. Like, if you had no idea what the Nutcracker was, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell that this was a sort of holiday episode. So while I do genuinely enjoy this as an episode of Courage, As a Christmas special, this is bottom of the barrel. So I'm going to have to go with a D tier. Ed, Ed, and Eddy. Jingle, jingle, jangle. Eddy, as usual, is up to no good and sneaks through his house to find his Christmas presents. But when they turn out to be nothing but clothes, they turn him into a bit of a Scrooge, and in a fit of rage, he knocks over his flashlight, which reflects into the sky, catching the Canker sisters' attention. Ed, on the other hand, is busy getting ready for Santa in the way that only Ed can. Double D shows up with a gift for Ed before Eddy brings his grinchy self over to bah humbug up the place. Double D tries to explain to him that Christmas isn't about the presents, when Eddy all of a sudden gets the bright idea to take part in someone else's Christmas, so he gets a share of the gifts. But not before Ed sneaks a loose Christmas light into his back pocket. First, he tries Johnny, who's pretending to be Jack Frost and filled his house with ice and snow. He sees through Eddy's grift, though, and sends him on his way. Next, he tries Rolf, who's willing to let him take part in his traditions, but Eddy decides to try his luck somewhere else. Meanwhile, Ed and Double D are trying to figure out a way to give Eddy the Christmas spirit, but he's just not having any of it. He blows it at Naz's house and then tries his luck with Jimmy's. However, after eating Jimmy's gingerbread village, Jimmy has Sarah come kick him out. Eddy then makes his way to Kevin's and begs him for a gift, which he gives him, but turns out to of course be a knuckle sandwich. Saddened, he wanders out into the snow all by himself, where he comes along a tiny Christmas tree with just one bulb out, that just so happens to match the one that Ed snuck into his pocket earlier, so he replaces it. Double D comes out and tells Eddy that what he just did was an unselfish gesture that he had absolutely nothing to gain from, just helping to help. He explains to him that that's just what Christmas is all about. Eddy realizes the meaning of Christmas is giving rather than taking, even if it means you're not getting anything in return. The other kids come out just in time for Santa to drive by and drop a giant sack of toys on top of Eddy, with a present for every kid, which Eddy of course steals. He runs off with it while the other Eds catch up to him and try to take the gifts back. Ed and Eddy fight over the sack, which then flies through the air, landing back with the other kids. Meanwhile, the Cankers follow the light all the way to the shed that the boys are in, and now in their own twisted nativity scene, they lock the boys in with them and say it's time for their presents. This episode was so close to being perfect for me. It's funny all throughout, it's cheerful and jolly. It's got Double D trying to teach Eddy the meaning the whole time, and for a split second there, you think that he got through to him. But then, of course, Eddy ruins it. Like, just for a minute there, it had the perfect mix of heartfelt and funny. And if they would have just ended the episode of Santa dropping the gifts on top of Eddy, it would have been perfect. And I think it probably would have made it to S tier, if not the very top of the list. But I think the actual ending of the episode just sort of snaps you back into the realization of, oh yeah, this is Ed, Ed, and Eddy. I really love this one right up until the very end, though, so I'm going to go with an A tier. Uncle Grandpa. The Uncle Grandpa Christmas Special. I haven't watched this show in probably well over a decade, and I think it would have been fine if it stayed that way. Listen, I like my shows quirky and weird and somewhat stupid, but this show's just a bit too much at times. This two-parter Christmas special opens with a segment where Santa gets injured while preparing for Christmas. Uncle Grandpa and the crew just happen to be flying by. Gus and Pizza Steve are decorating, but Uncle Grandpa wants no part of it since he hates Christmas. They then crash land into Santa's workshop, where it's revealed that he and Uncle Grandpa are brothers. And due to a mishap that happened years ago with a rap song at a talent show, Uncle Grandpa wants nothing to do with his brother Santa or Christmas. However, since Santa isn't able to deliver the gifts this year and Uncle likes to make kids happy, he decides to take his place. He dons a new uniform, reminiscent of the creature from Pan's Labyrinth, which is a wild pull, and sets out to deliver the gifts with Santa guiding him from his wrist communicator. But, of course, things don't go well, to the point where he's just sort of causing complete chaos for all these kids and their families. He then decides to stop listening to Santa and goes to a house that he isn't supposed to, where he gets trapped by a naughty kid. And this kid's not only trapped Santa, but pretty much every other holiday mascot too. Santa then guides Uncle Grandpa to his escape through the power of hip-hop, and he learns that he needs to accept the past and move forward. He then delivers the rest of the presents, but doesn't finish until spring. The second segment is pretty much a take on It's a Wonderful Life, where Uncle ruins a Christmas dinner and wants to fling himself into space. But then he's stopped by his guardian lobster, who shows him that all of his friends' lives are better since he's in it. This whole thing just sort of felt like a fever dream. I honestly think I might have blacked out watching this. I will admit though, it's pretty Christmassy. Even if I kind of hated watching it, I don't think I particularly liked this episode, but it was just Christmassy enough that I'm going to put it in C tier, as much as I want to put it on D. The Amazing World of Gumball. Christmas. While out on a drive on Christmas Eve, the Wattersons accidentally hit a man that has a striking resemblance to Santa. The kids and Richard all assume that they just ran over the real Santa who doesn't remember anything, but Nicole and the doctors all assume it's just an old homeless guy. They take him back to their house to get him cleaned up and give him some food, but the kids think that they need to jog his memory to get him back to his holly jolly self. So they take him to the mall where they sit on his lap, but they each get so pissed off, including the homeless man, that they cause thousands of dollars of damage. Back at the house, Nicole tells the kids that there is no Santa and that she wrote him every year but never got her gift. This causes the other kids to lose their Christmas spirit until Richard accidentally stumbles across Santa's sleigh, climbs aboard, and takes it for a wild ride. Thankfully, though, while he's flying frantically, a present falls on the homeless man's head, causing him to remember that he is in fact Santa Claus. Gumball gets caught up in the sleigh, but thanks to Santa guiding them from a walkie-talkie and the other kids lighting up a Christmas light runway for them, they land the sleigh safely. Santa then tells Nicole that she sent all her letters to the South Pole by accident, which is why she never got her gifts. He gives her a gift, thanks the kids for all their help, and is on his merry way. I think this one's pretty good. It wasn't necessarily like heartfelt or super touching, but it was funny, zany, and a bit out there, just like most episodes of the show. This isn't gonna like melt anyone's hearts or anything, but it's a fun one to throw on this time of year. So I'm gonna go with a B tier. Clarence, Merry Moochmas. It's the Christmas season and Clarence is bummed because it's so hot out and he's not feeling very Christmassy since there's no snow. He sees a weatherman on TV joke about how they're gonna get snow and takes it seriously. So he calls all of his friends and tells them that it's finally gonna snow. He makes his way around town telling everyone to bundle up for the storm, but when he gets to Belson's house, he meets his cousin Mooch, who's visiting the town for the holiday. Belson's mom offers to make them all cookies, so they all hang out inside. Clarence gets to finally meet Mooch, who is a bit of an asshole. Belson's mom then tells him that they don't have a present for him and asks Belson and Clarence to go get him something. While shopping, though, Belson just buys gifts for himself instead, which Clarence gets pretty upset about. As they leave, though, it starts actually snowing outside, making Clarence's Christmas wish come true. When they get back home, they see that Mooch opened all of Belson's gifts, so the two of them get in a fight and Mooch storms off. Clarence worries about Mooch being out in the now raging snowstorm and tells Belson that the two of them need to go find him. They go out looking and find him in a snowbank where Clarence accidentally breaks the new game that Mooch stole. So the two cousins come together to get revenge on Clarence and leave him in the snowbank. But Clarence is just happy that the two of them are now getting along for the holiday. This one was actually pretty sweet. I watched a bit of this show growing up but didn't get like super into it, but this was actually really funny and charming. Clarence is just so happy-go-lucky the whole time, and after he gets his Christmas wish, he pretty much just wants to focus on the two cousins trying to get along. And even though he ends up in a snowbank because of it, he doesn't care. He's just glad that these family members are finally spending some time together. I like this one quite a bit. I think it's really sweet and pretty funny, so I'm gonna go with an A tier. Evil Con Carne, Christmas Con Carne. We open with a, I'm pretty sure, drunk snowman regaling the tale of a Christmas that almost didn't happen. We see Santa and his elves at the North Pole getting ready when Hector Con Carne and his team attack Santa and the elves. He places his brain on Santa's body and takes control in order to put mind-controlling presents under everyone's tree. The snowman narrator sees this happening though and runs off to tell Rupert the reindeer, who of course has been shunned by all the other reindeer. Rupert decides to take matters into his own hands and sneaks into Santa's village. He fights off the army but gets subdued by snowballs. He gets through to Santa though, and Santa regains control of his body and fights off the remaining henchmen. Con Carne escapes back to the ship though with the mind control presents and decides to deliver them himself. Rupert pursues them though and gets onto the ship where he steals back the evil presents and crashes the aircraft. Santa in return then asks Rupert to guide his sleigh that night after saving Christmas. We then cut to Con Carne and his team opening presents on Christmas Day and getting coal once again. This was a funny little episode. It is only like a couple minutes long since it's the third segment in this episode, but it was pretty entertaining. Like, it's pretty funny and it's Christmassy enough, and it's nice that we end the episode with a little bow on top of the bad guys getting coal every year. I think I'm feeling a C tier for this one. The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, Low Tidings. Another in the long list of TV shows that have a stand-in holiday for Christmas, this time being Low Tide Day. It's Low Tide Day, the day of the year where the tide is, of course, at its lowest. Flapjack's curious about the holiday, but Knuckles and Bubby just don't celebrate it. Knuckles doesn't like it, and Bubby has to swim somewhere else since she can't be in low tide. Bubby decides to let Flapjack celebrate and leaves Knuckles behind with him. He takes Flapjack into hiding though and explains to him that he hates the holiday, since as a kid, instead of getting a present in his boot like the good kids, he instead got stuffed into a sack by a group of mermaids who punish bad kids. He and Flapjack keep trying to find somewhere to hide, but every spot in town is taken. So Flapjack gets the idea that instead of hiding since he's bad, he can just teach Knuckles how to be good so he gets a present. However, all of his attempts to be good just don't really work out. First, he takes him to apologize for being a jerk to Larry, but he's not sincere about it and the two of them get into an argument. Flapjack then finds out that the low tide pageant is in danger of being cancelled since two of the kids are out sick, so he offers for him and Knuckles to take their places. Unfortunately, Knuckles doesn't realize that he's playing the role of the bad kid, and he gets sacked on stage and freaks out, ruining the pageant. He still thinks they did a good thing though, and the two of them go off to put their boot in the water and wait for gifts, even though Flapjack knows that they're not going to get one. The next morning though, low tide comes in and they excitedly pull up their boot, which is empty, and there are the mermen waiting with their sack. The two of them jump off the pier when they discover a hole in the boot and run off in search of a gift that might have fallen through. With the mermen in pursuit of the captain, Flapjack searches around for the present while Poseidon himself holds off low tide to help him. Knuckles is still trying to escape and comes across Bubby, who's been beached due to the tide not coming back at its usual time. Initially, he just uses her as a stool to try to get into the water and escape, but he ends up helping her by putting water on her, and then even has the mermen help her keep her watered instead of escaping. They say that they're still going to sack him, but the rest of the town comes to their aid and stops the mermaids. Poseidon asks them why they aren't sacking bad people, and upon seeing Flapjack with a sack of gifts that he picked up off the ocean floor, he declares that from now on, sacks will only be used to carry gifts instead of shoving people inside, but they can still use the boots for smaller gifts if they want to. I think this one was a really fun take on like the new lore behind a Christmas holiday for this universe. And while it's a pretty quirky and funny episode, it does have some dashes of tenderness and sweetness through it too. Like Flapjack not caring about getting a gift and just wanting Knuckles to not get sacked, and then Knuckles finally doing something nice and helping Bubby, even though there's a chance that he will in fact get sacked. Honestly, even though I was never huge on this show, I think this was a pretty good episode. It's funny, sweet, and weird as shit. So I'm gonna go with an A tier. Ben 10, Merry Christmas. While driving the rust bucket through Death Valley on a hot summer day, the AC in the RV stops working, so Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa Max pull off on the side of the road. There they see a roadside holiday attraction and check it out. Inside they find a winter wonderland with snow, elves, and Christmas decorations galore. The gang checks it out while Max is kidnapped by some elves that take him to the head elf, Thomas Jingles. Jingles believes that Max is actually Santa Claus and there to finally deliver all the presents that he's been perfecting. He even thanks him for bringing more kids that he can turn into elves, Ben and Gwen. The two of them are still exploring when they're approached by giant nutcrackers who try to catch them. Thankfully though, they're rescued by an elf named Elsgood, who tells them that they need to escape before they're changed forever. Refusing to leave without their grandpa though, the three sneak into the workshop where they find Max, but then they get caught. While working on the toy line, Ben manages to sneak off and destroy the Jinglenator, which shuts down all the Christmas magic going on. Max then tells Jingle that making the perfect gift isn't the meaning of Christmas, but rather the thought behind giving the gifts. However, they realize that they need to deliver all the gifts to reverse the curse and set all the kids turned elves free. Ben transforms into Stinkfly and guides the sleigh to deliver presents all over the world, even though it's the middle of summer. They return and set everything back to normal, even meeting Elsgood as a human, and then drive off into the desert singing Christmas carols. This one's a lot of fun. It's Christmassy from the get-go, while also being decently funny and having some really entertaining action scenes throughout. It's a really clever and original plotline while just sort of sneaking in that tiny little dose of Christmas spirit there. I think this one's going to sit pretty nicely on B tier. Craig of the Creek. Locked out cold. While Craig and his brother and sister are getting ready to head to their grandparents' house for a holiday party, they accidentally lock themselves out of the house and the car. So in an effort to get back inside to the keys, they go around town to try to get a spare key from his brother's girlfriend, which doesn't work out, and then from Craig's friend Kelsey, which also doesn't work out. His sister then reveals that she hid a spare key outside the house, however she hid them in the gutters of their roof. So in order to get them down, Craig makes a grappling hook out of decorations and they knock down the gutter and grab the key. However, the gutter also destroys the car. So after their adventure, the kids finally get a hold of their mom and come clean, who tells them that Craig's friend JP has had a key the whole time. First things first, I need to watch more of this show. I watched it a little bit when it first came out, mostly because Jeff Rosenstock did the theme song, but then I didn't really give it much thought after season 1. And I think I made a mistake because I really loved this episode. It was really funny, all of the characters are great, and honestly, it was just a really good time. That being said, as a Christmas episode, didn't really work. They could basically swap the storyline for them trying to get to like any family gathering and it would be pretty much exactly the same. Nothing really too Christmassy going on here besides like the decorations around town. No tender moments, no Christmas miracles or holiday magic, just kind of had nothing to do with the holidays at all. So while I did really like the episode and honestly might start watching it again, on my Holly Jolly scale, this is right at the bottom. Good episode, but a D tier Christmas special. And God damn it, now the gloves are back again. We gotta get Holly Jolly real quick. Regular show. The Christmas special. I briefly touched on this episode last year when I did my Santa ranking, which I guess I'm now a part of. I think I'm C tier so far. We'll see how the holiday goes. But let's take a look at the episode and see if it lives up to the badass Santa that inhabits it. We start with a cold open. Where Santa's workshop is broken into, a present stolen along with Santa's sleigh. Santa, however, catches up to it on a hoverboard and tells the elf that robbed him, Quilgan, to give up. He takes the present and jumps off the sleigh, only to be shot while falling. I'm willing to bet this is the only episode we're going to watch where Santa gets shot. But this is also Cartoon Network, so I might be wrong. He crashes in the park while everyone's throwing a party and is discovered by Mordecai and Rigby. Santa gives them the task of destroying the box since it grants whoever opens it their wildest wishes, while also driving them insane. They recruit the rest of the guys, and Skips tells them that they need to cast it into a lava pit to destroy it, sort of like Lord of the Rings. On their way, they get caught by park rangers, and while they're interrogating them, Quilgan breaks in to try to steal the present back. The rangers decide to help the guys and lead them to the mineshaft that leads to the lava pit. With Quilgan on their tail, they delve into the mineshaft filled with booby traps and trials, including the usual trials and tribulations. Pinball and wrestling a bear. They get to the pit, but Quilgan beats them there and holds them at gunpoint to get the box back. However, Santa shows back up and puts a stop to his plan and saves the day. But Quilgan's able to get his hand on the box, though, and tries to use it to destroy Christmas forever. Mordecai rushes him and tackles him into the pit, and Rigby follows. As they fall into the lava, Mordecai uses the box to get him and Rigby a tandem hoverboard that they ride back to safety as Quilgan and the box are destroyed. Santa thanks the gang and tells Mordecai and Rigby that they just might make it onto the nice list this year. They head back in, and Benson tells them that it's time to clean up, but they find a gift under the tree specifically for them, which is the invisibility cloak that they've been asking for years. I love this show. As a whole, regular show is probably like a top 3 cartoon for me. I do think this special could have done with being a bit more heartfelt and sweet, but outside of that, it's a pretty great special. You know, it's just like a fun little holiday-centered adventure. So while it's probably not going to the top of the list, it's still pretty fun and Christmassy, so I'm gonna go with a B tier. Oh, thank God the gloves are gone. We Bear Bears. Christmas parties. I've actually never seen a single episode of this show, so this is going to be my first impression of it. The 3 bears, Grizzly, Panda, and Ice Bear, are setting up decorations when they get 3 invitations in the mail, all at once. One from their friend Ranger Tabes, one from their friend Charlie, and one from their friend Chloe. They're excited to go to all of them, but then they get an invite from Nom Nom to his rager of a Christmas party with tons of guests, entertainment, and gifts. So they decide they'll go to each of their friends' party for just a little bit so they can spend some more time at this huge one. First, they go to Tabe's party with the other Rangers who are pretty much just laying around. So the Bears liven things up with music and a game of limbo, and everyone's having a great time until the Bears need to leave, returning the party back to the snooze fest that it was. They go to Charlie's party next, which is inside an oddly decorated tree. It's just him and them, and he wants their help picking out something to use as a star for the top. But right as he's looking through his stuff, they have to leave. Then they get to Chloe's family's party, and they've been cooking this huge meal since the day before to prepare. As the Bears try to leave early though, they accidentally knock over the table, ruining the entire meal. They feel bad, but they head off to Nom Nom's party anyways. But once they get there, he tells them it was an accidental invite and kicks them out, after giving them a free puppy. They reflect on the night and how they gave up spending time with the friends that actually care about them and wanted to be with them for some meaningless party. So they decide to right their wrongs. They drop off the puppy to Tabes, which brings up her spirits, drop off a star in a box for Charlie, who excitedly puts the box on top of his tree, and then spend the night cooking a new meal for Chloe's family to make up for the one that they ruined. They all sit down together and enjoy the new Christmas meal. Wow. Really, what a great first episode to watch. Even without knowing the prior relationships of all these characters and the bears, this episode was super sweet and heartfelt and touching. I honestly think my biggest gripe with this episode is that I wish it was longer. I'm going to add this to the list of shows that I need to watch more of. Also, I think in that 11 minutes, Ice Bears jumped up my list of my favorite animated characters. Just a really fantastic episode. This one left me feeling warm and fuzzy, and I can feel that Christmas spirit surging through me. I'm going with an S tier. Johnny Bravo, A Johnny Bravo Christmas. So, growing up, I'd watch this show every now and then, like when it was on, but I never got super into it. I think I was probably just a bit too young for it, and all the jokes probably just, sort of flew over my head. Rewatching this Christmas special, though, I loved it. We open with Johnny doing his usual shtick of checking himself out in the mirror on Christmas Eve, when all of a sudden his mom calls him down to help decorate. She asks him to clean between the couch cushions where he finds both his mom and his letters for Santa that he forgot to mail. Worried that he won't get his free presents now, he heads off to mail them. But with it being the day before Christmas, when he tries to get the post office to mail him, he just gets laughed out of the building. He then meets up with little Susie and they hatch the idea to go to the North Pole and hand deliver them. They stow away on an airplane since the airport's insanely busy, where they meet a group of circus animals. Susie asks if they're excited for Christmas, but since they're in captivity, they're not, and all they want is to be free. So she frees them in the cargo hold, but then Johnny, Susie, and the animals are flung from the plane. They land safely, well, besides Johnny, and the animals are now free to roam. Susie then gets a hold of a trucker who picks them up, and she's got a niece that Johnny keeps hitting on. So in true Johnny Bravo fashion, he gets the shit beat out of him. They hitch a ride with the truckers to another airport and catch a ride with Leo, a pilot who just got his license that day. They get to the North Pole and are trying to find Santa when Donny Osmond, holy shit, that's a dated cameo. Do you even know who that is? I barely know who that is. Anyways, Donny Osmond appears out of the sky and basically helps them find Santa since he knows where the village is. They get to Santa and Johnny goes to give him their letters after Santa knocks Johnny on his ass for attacking him the year before. Santa opens one of the letters and reads it off, and it's all stuff that Johnny wants. But it turns out that the letter is actually from Johnny's mom and that she used her letter just to try to get Johnny some nice gifts. So instantly, Johnny takes back his own letter, crumples it up, and eats it. Santa says that there's 2 presents left, one for each of them, but Johnny tells him to give them both to his mom since she deserves it and all he wants is for her to be happy for Christmas. They return home and Johnny tells his mother about the adventure and she says that she doesn't care about any gifts and just wants to spend time with them. Just then, Leo, Susie, and pretty much the whole town show up to wish them a Merry Christmas and share some of their gifts with the Bravos. And then Johnny gets beat up again while hitting on someone. I really didn't have high expectations for this one. Like, I was fully expecting a middle-of-the-road special here, but this actually turned out to be one of my favorites. It was funny and charming and had moments that genuinely had me laughing out loud, while also being really sweet and touching. Like, the whole ending with Johnny giving up his gift for his mom was just so surprisingly wholesome. It really caught me off guard. And then with the town coming together to give Johnny a good Christmas in return, it was just like a sucker punch of sweetness. And I loved it. This was cheerful and Christmassy all throughout, while also being really entertaining the whole time. I really love this one, and I think it's also going to go on S tier. And there you have it, my ranking of 20 different Cartoon Network Christmas specials. And guys, I can't believe it, but it worked again. I just have so much Christmas spirit now that Santa himself couldn't be contained inside of me. But you know what? I do feel like I have a bit more appreciation now for the holidays this year. So I think I'm going to take some time, spend it with my family, maybe watch a Christmas special or two, wrap some presents, make a list, check it twice. Son of a bitch, I'm still Santa. Well, that was all a bust. Guess I'm just canonically Santa forever now. Hope you've been good this year, because I guess I'll be seeing you real soon. Leave the chimney open for me, and hey, cookies are still a go, but I am lactose intolerant, so maybe let's do like a Celsius or something. I'll probably need it. So let me know in the comments what you want for Christmas this year, and I guess I'll try my best. Ho ho ho. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas, everybody. And fuck Tim Allen.